Hello, my name is Wilson. In today's video, we shall be looking at the addition and subtraction of directed numbers using the number line. In the course of this class, I will introduce to you another method that we can use to add and subtract directed numbers without having to use the number line. But before we go into that, I would like to explain what directed numbers are. What are directed numbers? Before I even talk about that as well, I would like to take you back to some of the vocabularies for types of numbers. The first type of number I would look at today is real numbers. What are real numbers? Real numbers are all rational numbers and irrational numbers put together. So it's a set of numbers that are rational and sets of numbers that are irrational. When you put them together, they form what we call real numbers. A rational number is a number that can be expressed as a fraction. How about an irrational number? An irrational number is a number that cannot be expressed as a fraction. An example of irrational number is 1. 1 can be expressed as a fraction, 1 over 1. 2 is a whole number, we know, but it could also be expressed as a fraction, as 2 over 1. Well, 1 over 2 is already a fraction, so it's a rational number. 0.5 is also another fraction because, even though it's a decimal, it's written as a decimal, but this could be written as a fraction. So these numbers you're seeing are actually rational numbers, and because they're rational numbers, they are real numbers. Then irrational numbers are numbers that can be expressed as fractions. A common example of an irrational number is pi. We normally approximate the value of pi to be 3.142. And then this number continues unending. It never ends. Such a number cannot be expressed as a fraction. It is not even a recurring decimal. Recurring decimals are under rational numbers. Now, another vocabulary I would like to introduce is what we call integers. Integers are numbers that are real. In other words, they are real numbers, but then not only are they real numbers, they're also whole numbers. So integers are real numbers which are whole numbers, and these numbers could either be positive or negative. Now, positive and negative numbers may be called directed numbers. Now we know what directed numbers are. Directed numbers are positive or negative numbers which may be integers. They could also be rational numbers. They could be irrational numbers. They are all directed because they have positive. The point is that directed numbers would have a sign. They will have sign on top. So they are signed numbers. They are signed numbers. An example of a signed number is -2 or -2, +4 or -4, +9. All these numbers that have signs in front of them, they are all called directed numbers. Now let's talk about the number line. A number line is actually a straight line that has got some calibrations. There are graduations on those straight line, on that straight line, but I prefer to call those graduations markings. So a number line is a straight line that has got markings at regular intervals, and then these markings are used to represent real numbers. And for the purpose of this lesson, I would only focus on numbers which are integers. So I'm going to be focusing on only whole numbers that are either negative or whole numbers that are positive. So when we work with number lines, direction is very, very important. And there are only two ways you can move on a number line. You can either move towards the right as indicated by this arrow, and you can move towards the left as indicated by the other arrow in the opposite direction. And so we move from one real number to the next. We can move towards the right, move towards the left. So when we are adding, addition corresponds to movement towards the right, and subtraction corresponds to movement towards the left. And we hop from one real number to another real number as we move. So it's time now to look at that. But one more thing, The number line extends to the right to infinity, infinity being the end of all numbers that can never ever be reached, because we can always add 1 to the end of any number and then we get a new one, so we can never ever end it. So, and the same thing happens here as well. To the left, it is towards negative infinity. We can never ever get to the end of it. So whatever number line that you're faced with will be peculiar to the question of the moment. So I'm talking about questions of the moment. If you're given two signed numbers, for example, you have +3 +2. These are signed numbers. In other words, they are directed numbers. These numbers, the way we can use the number line to answer this question is to first of all start at +3. So you look for +3. This is +3. And then you move towards the right, because this addition here, this add 2 here means to move to the right. Your direction should be towards the right, but 2 steps to the right. So I'll move 2 units to the right from 3. So I'm starting from 3 and I'm moving 2 units to the right. So starting this way, I'm going to move 2 units. Let's do that now. From 3, I do 1, 2, and I landed myself on 5. So I have +5 as the answer to this question. Let's look at another question. This one says +1 +6. So we're going to start at 1 +1. So I'm starting at 1, but I'm going to be heading towards the right again because of this add 6. +1 add 6, or +1 +6. This plus is a directional movement. Starting from +1, I'm going to move towards the right again, but 6 times this time. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 lands on 7 here. So the answer to this one will be +7. We are using the number line to add and subtract directed numbers. Let's go to another example. This is -2 -3. This time the signs are negative. So we have -2 subtract 3. So I go to -2. I start from -2 and I subtract. This time around, this subtract means I'm going to be heading towards the what? Towards the left. So I'm going to be going leftward. So from -2, I go 1, 2, and 3. So my answer is -5. So my answer here is going to be -5. Let's take another one. -5, -7. So I'm going to start at -5. And then I'm going to go leftwards. I'm going to go towards the left because of this minus. It says subtract 7 from -5. So you're going to be going backwards or leftwards from right to left. That's what that's what the movement will have to be. So I'm going to start with -5. -5 is this way here, and I'm going to move 7 steps to the left. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the answer there is -12. -12. So let's do a fifth one. This time around, we have these signed numbers have got different signs. So one of them is -3, the other one is +4. So how do we handle this? The same way. You start at -3. Let's start at -3, but this time around the add 4 tells me I'm going to the right. So I'll go from -3, I'll go 4 steps to the right, so or 4 units towards the right. So we'll start from here. We'll go 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is going to be the answer. +1 is going to be the answer to that question. And then the final question using the number line method is this. It says +4 - 9. So again, we look at this starting from +4. +4 is right here, and -9 is supposed to be going backwards because this says subtract 9 from +4. Subtract 9 from 4. So it gives me an idea of direction. It tells me that I'm supposed to be going towards the left. So I'll be going towards the left from +4. So I start from +4 here. And of course, notice that there's also another 4 here, but this time, this particular 4 here is negative. So I'm starting with this +4. So we'll do 9 steps to the left. So let's go. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. My hopping is a bit wobbly. Okay, so this is 9 here. So my answer is -5. So here we have -5. Okay, I believe this is simple enough for you to do, but the next thing I'm going to do now is to introduce you to a method that we're going to use without having to use the number line. We should to be able to solve, we should to be able to add and subtract signed numbers, or add and subtract directed numbers. Before we go into that, there's a few rules you have to have in mind. In order for us to add and subtract directed numbers using these simple rules, we would have to consider and assume that we're only given 2 directed numbers. So we work with 2 directed numbers all the time for us to be able to use this rule. The first rule is to write down the sign of the bigger number. The second rule is to, if the signs are the same, you're to add the numbers. And the third rule is that if the signs are different, then subtract the numbers. A very important point to have in mind here is when using this rule, you don't need to focus on the actual value of the number. For example, if you have -2 and then you have +2, we already know that +2 seems to be bigger than -2 in terms of the position on the number line. But then we don't consider their signs. So we're only considering the digits and not the sign. So we're only considering the and not the sign when we're using this rule. So I'm going to show you how to handle them. So the same sets of questions that we did using the number line are the same questions we're going to do again using these simple rules. Let's start from the first one. Question 1 says +3 +2. Remember rule 1. Rule 1 says that you should write down the sign of the bigger number. Which number is bigger here? 3 is bigger than 2. So I'll pick the sign of 3, which is plus, and then I consider the next rule, which is the fact that if the signs are the same, I should add the numbers. Are the signs the same here? Yes, the signs are the same. If you look at them, the signs are actually the same. You have a plus here and then you have a plus right there as well. So we would now have to add these 2 numbers. So adding these 2 numbers will give me 5. That is why the answer is 5. I did not use the number line to do this. Let's go to question 2. Question 2 also is similar to the first question in the sense that these numbers have got same signs as well. First rule says that I should write down the sign of the bigger number. So I'm only considering the fact that I have 1 and 6 here, not exactly looking at their signs, but just looking at the numbers. So considering 1 and 6, 6 is bigger or larger than 1. So I'm going to take the sign of 6. Although at this point in time, it doesn't really matter because both signs are the same. So any one you choose will still work, but it's good to follow procedures. It's good to be, to follow precepts. So I'm going to pick the sign of 6, which is plus. So this is going to be plus. Plus what? The way to find out what the answer or the result would be is to consider the signs. Are they the same? Second rule says that if the signs are the same, add the numbers. So the signs are actually the same. So I'm going to add these numbers and that's what I'm going to get 7. So my answer is +7. I'll go on to the third question. The third question has got same signs again, but then this time around they are negative signs. So what do I do? Rule number 1. It says write down the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is 3 and the sign is minus. So I write down minus. Now consider the signs. Rule number 2 says if the signs are the same, add the numbers. So I'm checking out the signs now to see if they are the same. Yes, the signs are the same. So you add the numbers. 3 plus 2 will give you 5. That will be the answer. Let's go to question 4. Question 4, also similar to question 3. The two numbers there are negative numbers. So, and the way we look at that is to first of all pick out the sign of the larger number. So the sign of the larger number is minus, and then because the signs are the same, we would have to add the two numbers. When you add 5 to 7, you would get 12. Now we have to pay attention to these two questions here, number 5 and question 6. This time around the signs are different. And if you look, the sign of the bigger number according to rule 1 is that we're going to pick, or we're going to write down the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is 4. So we pick the sign of the bigger number, so we have the sign right there. And then we look at the signs. The signs are different. Because these signs are different, we shall subtract. So we'll do 4 minus 3. Actually, what we're doing is we're looking for the difference between the two numbers. So we do 4 minus 3, and then we get 1. So answer there will be plus 1. And finally, question 6. They're also different. These directed numbers have got different signs, but then the rule says I should pick the sign of a bigger number. So I'm going to pick the sign of the bigger number, which is minus. And then because the signs are different, that will be the third rule. It says if the signs are different, subtract the numbers. So if the signs are different, like in this case they are different, I'm going to subtract the numbers. And when I say subtract, I mean find the difference between the numbers. So you're doing minus, you're doing the larger minus the smaller one. So 9 minus 4 will give you 5. So I believe this would help. And then until I meet you in the next video,